From Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bavenzi, one of the concerns last fall when the FDIC limits were being discussed about being extended at that time was the ability of the FDI insurance fund to withstand the strain of potentially any bank failures that came up. And I certainly believe we must make sure that Americans have trust in the deposits that are going into these FDIC insured accounts. Do you have any concerns at all with extending the restoration plan or the reserve period for when the reserve ratio would drop from 5 years to 8 years as proposed in the legislation?
I think if Congress were to go forward and make permanent the deposit insurance level to $250,000, it does add exposure to the FDIC funds. So we would need we would need to be able to charge premiums to the industry to help restore a balanced level of fund. And it would seem appropriate to have that kind of flexibility in going from 5 to 8 years to be able to balance how quickly to bring the revenue in with the demands being placed on the banking industry at that time. So that flexibility to me seems to go together with the $250,000. If one were to be put in law, it would be appropriate to have the other.
And obviously, with if the assessments are going to go up or potentially double, I think it's been discussed at the FDIC. Is there some concern then about the liquidity? You know, having the ability for liquidity in the market and potentially as well.
Yes, and those are very careful deliberations on what is the appropriate premium level to charge the banking industry and how quickly to replenish the deposit insurance fund back to its normal level given those competing objectives that we have at this time.
And Ms. Burns, I was just going to ask you, I know you mentioned you really believe that removing these barriers and making it much easier to participate in the Hope for Home Ownership program is really going to make it successful. I guess my question is, do you have any sense of what the timeline might be to actually see some real numbers come in? Because when you see the forecast of 400,000 homes that are potential users that are actually going to use the program and only 25 actually do, I mean, what's sort of the timeline where you think we're actually, as members, will actually be able to say it was successful and actually worked if we remove these barriers?
Well, that's a very interesting question. One of the questions back would be, how quickly could the piece of legislation be passed, and how similar would the program look to an existing FHA product? The closer it is to an existing FHA program, the easier it is to implement for everyone, for FHA, obviously, but also for the lending community. One of the things that makes the program so difficult today is that it has so many distinct requirements and these new financial instruments that require the lending community to set up new protocols, procedures, and if we had a product that were similar to the existing FHA programs, the lending community could adopt it fairly quickly, easily, modify systems in a minor sort of way, and we could get it up and running, within, I would say, a matter of, weeks. So I would certainly advise that we, think along those lines, make the new product as similar to existing FHA programs as possible.
Okay, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Let me just